Hi everyone, welcome back to Flexpo. I'm Ursula Tavender, the content director here at the Flexpo event series, and I'm thrilled to be joined by two experts today on setting up your own business. This is a session all about how to make the move to self-employed and what you need to make it successful. And I'm joined by Rebecca Newenham, the founder of Head VA, and Joy Foster, the founder of TechPixies. So without further ado, I'd love to hand over to you, Rebecca, to give us an introduction to yourself and your business. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Ursula. Great to be here with Joy as well. So, yeah, Rebecca Newenham, I set Get Ahead up in 2010. We're an outsourcing team of experts. So we basically work with busy business owners and support them with all the types of needs they have in their business, whether it's telephone answering, providing them with a virtual PA, right through to PR and marketing. So as I said, I set the business up in 2010. We've grown to a team of over 40 freelancers, and I launched a franchise of that business 3 years ago. So we're growing regional offices around the UK, and flexible working is where we're at. So it's lovely to be involved in this session today, where hopefully I can share some of my learnings from the last 10 years.
We're really lucky to have you, Rebecca. Great to have you with us today. And Joy, it's lovely to see you.
Nice to see you too, and it's wonderful to see Rebecca as well. The last time we hung out was, I think, in person at the real live expo event, or Flexpo event, whereas this is the real virtual Flexpo event. So yeah, it's wonderful to be here. So I'm the founder of TechPixies. TechPixies is an online program called Social Media Magic. We teach women how to leverage social media in order to return to work, change careers, or start a business. So it's a lot of fun. I've worked with over 500 women who've gone through our Social Media Magic program, and we've had about 4,000 women go through our Social Media Supercharge program, which is a free program to get them up to speed very quickly on social media in 2020, 2021. And so I have set up 3 businesses. TechPixies is my third. I've been running it for 5 years, but I've been in business for myself since about 2009, when I was my contract at a big consultancy firm ended and I couldn't get a job.
It's so interesting, isn't it, what drives all of us to do what we're doing right now. And I'd love to talk to you both about that, actually, about your kind of growth and you know, how you've got to where you are. So Rebecca, if I can pick on you first, let's kick off with a bit about your story, if that's all right. You know, how did you start your business, and what are kind of some of the most significant, I guess, that, you know, the positive and the challenging moments that you've experienced as, you know, part of your growth since you started?
Oh, that's a meaty one. Yeah, so I was a retail buyer in a pre-mummy life. I've got 3 now teenagers. So when my youngest daughter was starting school, it was my opportunity then to really decide what I wanted to do. And you know, did I go to Waitrose head office, which was my nearest retailer, or did I really sort of get that business launch that I'd always had in the back of my mind? My mum ran a tutorial agency when I was growing up, so she was matching extra tuition for kids, and she really inspired me, and she enabled me to see that actually you could have something flexible, interesting and professional, yet balanced off with being available for myself and my brother, you know, after school. So I had that vision, and I always remember her saying, you know, you'll find your passion. And for me, that was always really, really important. I wanted to do something that was making a difference not only to myself but to other people as well. So I'd look around the playground, see these wonderful parents with skills that possibly they were having to sacrifice just for the fact they wanted to be with their kids, or equally they were hardly there and racing down the hill to get to the station to go into London. So for me, it was finding the right flexible business. I'd heard the term virtual assistant. It was very strong in the States. They're probably 10 years ahead of me. And I knew that I had some synergy with that. But equally, I knew I didn't want to necessarily be doing the client work. So from a very early stage, I know we're going to talk about this later, I had that sort of vision of actually, I want this to be more than just me. So set it up, did a lot of networking. And I remember them being fairly sort of shy and retiring, thinking, oh, how am I going to even stand up to do an elevator pitch, let alone, you know, liaise with clients. But it was amazing when you find your thing. And I know Joy would agree with me on this. That's when the match happens, and you sort of get your energy, you get fired up, and you realize you're in the right arena for you at that time. And it's something that has evolved. So we evolved, I've added team members onto us, and then the scaling and the scalability piece came in about 3 years ago when we launched the franchise. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell in terms of sort of the growth story.
Amazing, thank you so much. Joy, tell us more about your story.
Yeah, so I think it's important to recognize that when I did have the contract when in 2009, when I was about to get married, I then worked with a recruiter to find a new job. And I remember I was thinking about getting pregnant, but I didn't know, we'd gone on our honeymoon. I didn't know if I was pregnant or not, but I was thinking about it, you know. So I said to the recruiter, I said, you know, I want to know what the maternity leave policies for these companies are before I go and interview, because I want to make sure that they will support flexible working for corporate mothers. I mean, that's kind of the way, I mean, I was so brazen, you know, I thought this is, you know, I'm interviewing them as much as they're interviewing me. And he stood me up, the recruiter stood me up and walked me out of the room and just said, I can't help you. And that was like my, you know, that was kind of end of my corporate career. If I ever had one, I didn't last very long anyway, but that was when I thought, okay, this corporate environment's not for me. And then I found myself pregnant, and that was even more impossible to get a job. And so living in Switzerland, and I ended up learning German for 9 months. And then I realized that there were thousands of people living in the area in Switzerland that I was living in that didn't speak the German language. They were just like me. And actually it was even worse for a lot of women because they were completely isolated at home. So my very first business was a blog, and it was to answer all the questions people had about living in Lucerne in English, because what we learned was 99% of the websites were in German and they didn't translate them into English. And Google Translator wasn't around in the capacity that it is now. So it was really interesting for me. I just wanted to help people. And I think that's the first lesson in business I learned, was if you can solve a problem, that's, you know, the first step. Now, the second step is learning how to charge for solving that problem. That took me 3 businesses to figure out. But I will say, you know, the first one I set up effectively as a charity, and I ended up leaving Switzerland and moving back to the UK. And I set up a second business building websites. And that was a social enterprise. And I ended up selling that eventually. And so I could focus full time on TechPixies. But TechPixies really was similar to the other two in the sense that I was trying to solve a problem. With the web development business, I was trying to solve the problem of charities who had low budgets needing good websites. And so I solved that problem by hiring young people who had never built websites before, teaching them how to build websites, and then selling those websites to the charities. So I was able to have low cost labor and have a high end result. It was a lot of work though, working with teenagers who are at risk of long-term unemployment, and selling to charities was probably a double whammy for me at the time. And it was a bit too much. And again, I still hadn't quite figured out how to make money in my businesses. I knew how to build a great product. I just didn't know how to make money. So that when the third business came around, which was TechPixies, that really came as a result of the mothers of the teenagers that I was working with saying, I want this too. What do you have for me? I want to learn how to upskill myself in technology, especially in social media, because that was what was kind of really popular at the time, still really popular now. So I ended up, you know, creating a course to help women upskill with social media. And then it just took off, and we won the digital course of the year from Digital Women this year. So, you know, but it really, to be honest, it's always come back to what's the problem I can solve and how can I solve it? And for TechPixies, the initial problem was, can we get 12 women back into work using social media who had been out of work from anywhere from 2 years to 18 years? And we were able to very successfully do that. So that was a lot of fun for me.
It's a lot of fun for me sitting here and listening to both of your stories. So thank you. So much purpose in what you both do. It's really inspiring to sort of hear about where you've come from and how you've got there. I'd love to talk to you now about the pros and cons that you've experienced in sort of making that leap to self-employed, and what you'd kind of say to our audience watching today would be the main pros and cons if they're sat here sort of thinking about making the same change for themselves. Joy, could I come to you first on that one?
Yeah, so the pros and cons. All right. Well, I think the biggest thing people make the mistake with when they think I'm going to set up my own business is most people set up a business for time freedom and money freedom. Like, I know that's why I set up my own. You know, I wanted to work when I wanted to work, and I wanted to set my own salary. What I would say is that is a pro, but it takes a long time to get there. And I think people underestimate that sometimes. And so there are ways to get there faster. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, you know, how you can learn from other people who've already gone before you. I think that's a really key thing to invest in yourself. Make sure you're doing courses to learn how to do what you want to do. And I wish I'd known that, you know, and I wish I had the courage to have done that in the early days. I struggled really hard for a long time because I didn't understand how much of business is having to make money. And I didn't understand how much I wasn't prepared to make money. I didn't have my head in the right place. I didn't value money correctly. I didn't see money as a tool to build in a business, to employ more people, to, give my family the life I wanted. I saw it as evil, and profit was bad, and money is bad, profit is evil, because I came from this charity, nonprofit, social enterprise background, which a lot of women come from. And because a lot of women, they will take the local admin job at the school, or they'll take they'll take the secretary job at the church, or they'll take those jobs. They don't pay very well. You get some fulfillment out of them because you're giving back to the community, but you spend decades working in that kind of an industry, and then suddenly having to make a lot more money in order to cover the cost of the business, and also to cover the cost of the employees, especially if you're going to employ people. People just don't fully understand that. So I would say that the pros are money freedom, time freedom. The cons are money freedom, time freedom, because you have to really be prepared to change the way you think in order for that to actually work. And I know, one thing that's been great is I have been able to do all the things that, I don't have to ask for permission to go to the school play. I don't have to ask for permission to go to the school run. I don't have to ask for permission to leave to take care of my kids. The problem is I actually have to give myself permission to stop working. And I think that happens a lot. If you run your own business, you kind of feel like you've got to work all the time. And so I've had to also transition. How can I do more? How can I do less and make more? And that's another mental shift that I've had to really seriously make, especially as the company has scaled. And for me, that's required hiring a lot of people. So we have a much bigger team now. We have about 20 people. And when I did start out, it was just me and one other person. So you do have to have, if you want something to go beyond you, you do have to have the courage to start hiring people.
I love that. Thanks so much, Joy. There's so much to think about there. And I'm here relating hard to the kind of back in the early days of setting up my business, and I was in the very same place. So it's really good to know that these not alone. I think that's really powerful, isn't it? That most people go through this, having to transition from the employee to this owner/employer mindset, and that requires some serious work, doesn't it? Rebecca, what's your experience of the pros and cons, and what would you say to build on what
Joy said? Totally agree with you, Joy, and I think it's that whole discipline piece. So when I'm talking, for example, to new franchisees joining the team, I often say, this is amazing. Sunday night feeling, total flexibility. But the flip side of that is you have to be super organized. You have to have that clarity of actually what you're wanting to achieve, and the whole piece around being very open and honest with people around you. And I think the whole professional networking piece plays into that. So finding cheerleaders within your own environment, so home, family, and be honest with them about what you're wanting to achieve. And that sort of sharing of information is really important. And you're not playing at it either. And I think, like Joy said, you could spend years trying to achieve something, but if you actually sort of break it down into more tangible pieces, and you're clear from the very beginning of what your vision is, what are you wanting to achieve? And if I look back to sort of VA businesses that I've witnessed that have been built up around that person's name, that's absolutely fine. There's no right or wrong. I think sometimes people get worried and think they need to be creating this amazing business, and it all boils down to actually what you personally want to get out of becoming self-employed. Do you want to grow an empire? Do you want to simply fill your working week while your kids are at school? That's absolutely fine as well.
I think that's such a good point. Such a good point. It's all about you, isn't it? And what you want. There
Yes.
is no blueprint. It's just, start there. Building on that then, so where do you start, and what do you think is important to know from a kind of research perspective when you're making the move? What do you think?
Yes, if I look back to what I did, it sort of started with, what do I want to be called? And I would say that to people as well. Do you want to base it around your name? You can never pronounce my surname. No one could ever spell it. I didn't really want to be based around that. So I did a lot of sort of wordplay with my husband, saying, what am I doing? And very much like Joy said, what problem am I solving? And we're helping businesses get ahead, move on. So I thought, well, I can see a branding thing coming here. And being a ex-retail buyer, branding and pitching myself just right was really important. But we did a lot of research, and I think, even if you're not particularly driven into research, it is worth just scanning around, seeing what other people are doing, just so you can see what's working, what isn't working, what you relate to, but also appreciating right from the beginning that things will evolve and change. You won't set up one thing and it'll be like this in 10 years' time. Things do change over time. So it's being agile, and I hate that word pivoting, we've all heard that far too much recently, but it is about just sort of realizing that you start in one place, let's grow and have an open mindset as well as to where you're going to go, and see what other people are doing and where you feel motivated and drawn to, rather than sort of just having a very rigid mindset as to what you want to achieve.
Definitely. And Joy, you talked about researching others and looking at what other people are doing and who's come before you and learning from them. Can we just talk a little bit more about that? Because I think that is such good advice.
Yeah, so one thing that just totally changed the trajectory of my life, and also, I mean, everything is different now, is that I found someone online who knew what I needed and wanted to accomplish, and they had a blueprint. And so, you know, I spent a good year and a half trying to sell online courses without even knowing that I had done it all wrong. I knew I was doing it wrong because I wasn't getting the sales that I wanted. I wasn't getting the enrollments that I wanted, but I didn't realize like why I was, you know, what was wrong, you know, and I didn't know what I didn't know. So I think if someone's watching this today and is wanting to start up a business and they feel like, I don't know how to do the business side, but I know how to do the industry. So I knew how to do social media. I just didn't know how to do online courses. Then you need to go find an expert. And I found an expert for online courses, and that's who I learned from. And then that led to an expert on Facebook ads. And then I learned from them. And then that led to an expert on mindset, because Facebook ads require a really thick skin. You've got to be willing to spend a lot of money to get the results. So I started working with a mindset expert. And then that person led me to someone who knows how to do online business systems. So I signed up for that course. And then that led to somebody else who taught me how to do an evergreen system. And then, so you can see how I went from one person to another person to another person. And I just kept investing in my education, and my business blew up, like in a good way. But it was because I invested in people who already had done it. They had proven systems, and then I just paid for them to show me their systems. And it wasn't cheap, but what I did was every time I made money, I just reinvested in a new system, reinvested in a new learning. And I really wish that someone had told me that piece of advice. You know, I think a lot of times women feel like they've got to ask their partners for permission to do things. And I know, like, the first business course I did, it was called Startup Success, and it was free. It was run by Oxfordshire LEP, and I didn't have to pay for it. The second business course I did was called the Fab Accelerator, and it was also in Oxford. They don't do it anymore, but I had to pay £500 for myself and £250 for my business partner, so £750. And I remember having a conversation with my husband, and I said to him, I really want to do this, but it's going to require, you're going to have to look after the kids every Monday night for 12 weeks. And I said, I won't be available. And I said, so it's going to impact you. So I just want to make sure you're okay with looking after the kids. And he said, well, why do you need to do the course? Why can't you just learn it on YouTube, and Google for free? And I knew who was teaching the course. I knew who was going to be in the course. I knew the network that I was going to have out of it. And I said, I can't learn this stuff on Google. I don't even know I don't know what I don't know. You know, that's the thing. I knew that I was going to learn stuff in that course that I wouldn't even know to look for. And I did. I learned how to pitch my product. I learned how to do a USP, like an elevator pitch. I learned how to write a financial plan. I learned how to, get like insurance in place. I mean, there's so much I learned in that course. And it was really interesting because if I'd asked him for permission, he would have said no. But what I did instead was I said, look, I really, really want to do this. And I had 700, actually, I didn't even have the money in the bank account. I only had enough money for the first payment. And I asked for a payment plan, 3 payments of £250, and they weren't doing that, but they did it for me. So, I think the thing is I have always reinvested the revenue in the business in training myself and my team how to do things better, and instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, just learning from someone who's already done it before. And that saved me so much time, and it made me a lot of money. And I think that's the thing to understand is, even my investors, sometimes they look at my training budget and they go, what? You spent that much on training? And I just go back to them, well, you just wait till the end of the year and you're going to see all that money and then some come back in. It's like, I just know that if I invest in myself, I will be able to create a better system, a better product, and it'll create a lot more efficiency in the business. And that's really, really important.
So important, isn't it? And I'm just sat here looking at the sign behind you that says "Be brave," and it sounds like it's a consistent thing that's for both of you has. That sort of mantra has been part of your success, really, because I think it's quite vulnerable, isn't it? And certainly really, really courageous to stick to your guns in that way and to kind of follow your heart. And you know, we talked earlier about intuition, which I know we'll come back to, but now I'd really love to move on to talk to you both a little bit about starting a plan. So how do you find a plan as a new business owner or person, you know, looking to move to become freelancer, that covers your sort of short-term, medium and longer term vision, and what do you think those plans should include? Joy, can I ask you that one first?
Yeah, so I'm going to be really honest here, because this is where I screwed up for a long time. I'm a woman of faith. I had this perspective, like if I put a number on what I want to do in 12 months, then I'm going to limit God. Okay. And I'm not joking. That is the way I thought. And I really thought, I'm not going to limit him. I want to see what he can do. I want to see the miracles that God can do. Right. Well, in reality, it doesn't work that way. You have to, if this dream is on your heart, then there's going to be a number on your heart. And that's where the intuition starts to really matter. The women are very intuitive. And I think this is one of our huge business skills that people don't even realize. And so if you can really tap into your heart and really tap into what you are supposed to be doing, the answers are there. You just have to tap into them. And it takes people a long time to figure out how to tap into them. You can do visualization exercises. You can do mindfulness training. You can do self-hypnosis. There's all sorts of things you can do, but tapping into yourself and getting really honest with what you want is so important. And I don't think you can write a plan until you've done that exercise. So at TechPixies, we have a visualization exercise. It's free and people can go through it, and you ask yourself a question, right? And you meet your future self, and you say to your future self, you say whatever your question is, and then she gives you an answer. And I love to have women do that exercise, especially when they're trying to decide what business they want to do, or if they're trying to decide how much money they want to make, whatever, because the answer's there. You just have to tap into it. And so the first thing I would say when you're doing a plan is you really need to tap into yourself. You need to figure out, what do I really want? And what do I really want financially? And the thing that's so important about that question is that when people put a number out there, like let's say 60,000 or 50,000 or 10,000 or 100,000, what you have to think about is, okay, that's what the company's going to make. What am I going to make? Right. And then so you have to think about the company, what the company's going to make. And then you have to think about the cost of the company. And then you have to think about, okay, and you are a cost, you are a line item. And so many women do not include themselves as a line item on their budget for that first year. You have to pay yourself. If you don't pay yourself, there's no point in doing this whole work. So make sure when you pick the number that you're going to go with the number that your gut gives you, first and foremost. If you then write down a smaller number, erase it, go back to the big number, the crazy number that you think there's no way. That's the number that's in your heart. And then you work backwards and you say, okay, how much am I going to make? Okay, how much do I have left over? Okay, what am I going to spend that on? Right. And then you have a plan. Like if my revenue doesn't, every quarter, one of my business mentors said, every quarter you need to have a revenue generating plan. Whatever that, every quarter there needs to be one way of making money. And then, if I made it, if I didn't make it, how am I, if I don't make it, how am I going to cover it? What do I need to change? If I do make it, great. If you have a surplus, great. You can start to work from there, but you need to look at your bank account. You need to plan, and putting a number down is number one. And then number two, I would say, keep it simple. Do a one pager, be really and the best advice I got, and I wish I'd had this advice sooner. You can take one product to £1 million. You can take one product to £1 million. And a lot of people think, I get one successful product. Okay, I'll do a second and a third and a fourth and a fifth and a sixth. Actually, if you double down on that one product and you don't do anything else, you can take that to $1 million. And people don't realize that. And when I started doing that, it changed the game. So I had 6 online courses. I cut them all out, created one. And then I just slowly raised the price, raised the value, raised the price, raised the value, and then just repitched it, resold it, resold it, resold it. So I've now sold my course 23 times, right? And it's the same product I started with 5 years ago. We have a few extra products, but not very many. And we've only introduced those once the first one was doing well and making a profit. So I think just make it simple. One page, one product, get started with that one thing and keep making that as good as it can be. And then once you feel like that's profitable, then you can add in other products.
Okay, that's awesome. What are your thoughts on this, Rebecca?
Oh, simple. Yeah, that's so true, Joy. I think it is about making it simple. So I've worked with a number of coaches over the years, and very much like you, Joy, that's sort of reinvested each time. But I always remember sometimes thinking, oh, I won't take any money out of the business this month. And it's ridiculous. So as soon as I shifted that, and I was actually, like you said, a line on my accounting, I felt so much more sort of professional, and I was doing it and I was getting the rewards. But working with a coach has made a huge difference to me. So we've done a lot of work over the years over that sort of short, medium and long-term planning. I remember doing a lovely, similar to Joy talking about the visualization, sort of standing here and then looking at myself in a year's time, and what have I achieved, what have I done, and that helped me be really, really focused. And we do a lot of sort of 90-day planning now, so every quarter, and I love that as well, spending and investing time in me. And I have been always very good at spending time on my personal development, and never seeing it as a luxury, but seeing it as a valuable part of what I'm doing in order to sort of be successful within the team and give it that longevity. And very much like Joy, you know, as a virtual assistant offering, we've got a very core base offering, and we sort of flex that in slightly different markets, but ultimately I've kept the same business model because it works and because we're good at it. And it all boils down to the people and the communication. So the whole planning is critical, but you need to flex it a little bit, but also don't forget why you're doing it. And that's really important.
Some serious nuggets of wisdom in there from you both. Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about financial support then to help people get started. So this is something that I guess a lot of, you know, we talked earlier about women and mindset, and you know, I think it's a real leap, isn't it, to seek funding and to you know, get into that frame of thinking that, you know, you need some support to get started. So Joy, I know you've got some quite strong and brilliant views on where people should go and why they should do that, linked to your story as well. So can you share a little bit with us about that, please?
I think this goes back to the first company I set up. I built with blood, sweat, and hair. So I ended up putting money into it, never took money out of it, and at one point got so stressed and tired that I lost a patch of hair on my head.
Wow.
And I didn't realize that I was a line item. You know, I didn't realize I needed to pay myself, and I didn't realize a lot of things. I did everything out of my personal account, not a business account. I mean, talk about trying to separate the finances there. You know, that was a disaster. So, you know, I learned a lot by making a lot of mistakes. But I would say when it came to my third business, I was like, there is no way in heck I am spending my own money to set this business up. That is literally what I thought. I was like, I've done that too much. And the other problem was because I hadn't taken a proper salary in the 8 or so years that I'd set up the other two businesses, I actually had no money to invest in a new business. Like, actually, I had nothing. I had no savings or anything. So I was in a situation where it was like, I couldn't even use my savings to launch a business. But what was interesting was in all these business courses I did, I found out about different ways to fund your business. And that was really cool because there are so many ways to fund your business. You can crowdfund, you can raise investment, you can, big borrow and steal. No, I'm teasing. I feel like I've done it all though. You know, you can sell a product. That's the best way to make money for a business, is sell a product or a service. But sometimes, like in my case, you know, it wasn't as straightforward as just sell the product. I knew I needed to build an online platform. Well, I thought I needed to build an online platform. I found out later that there are online platforms that host courses, and I didn't know that. So again, you don't know what you don't know. So make sure you do your research. But for sure, for me, you know, I've crowdfunded, I've sold products and services, I've raised money with investment. What I also did was I took loans. So I took the startup loan and paid that back. I took the COVID loan. And it's just, if you believe unwaveringly in what you're doing, and I think that's really important, this unwavering faith. If you really believe that your business is going to come off, and especially, you know, I wouldn't say go take a loan to anyone. What I would say to them is, you know, you take a loan when you know you can pay back the revenue, right? The loan is slightly different. Now, when I raised investment, I knew there was a chance that what I was doing, I knew it was probably going to work. I just didn't know how long it was going to take to work. So when you take a loan, what happens is they give you a grace period, and then you got to start paying it back. So when you're doing your planning, you have to know, okay, if I take this loan, you know, it's going to give me the ability to build this product or whatever, and then I'll make the money back. And it is a little bit riskier. I think a loan can be a bit riskier. We have taken loans later in the business where we know that the revenue is going to come, and the loan is there just to keep the business going. So there was a period of time, if I hadn't taken a loan, there would be no business now. And it was really the only way I could keep the business going at that time. But I had this unwavering faith that that I could figure it out. You know, I love the book, Everything is Figure Outable by Marie Forleo. If you don't have it, get it. You know, everything is figure outable. And if you believe in your heart of hearts that this is going to work, whatever your business plan is, it will work. And it's just like Henry Ford says, if you think you can, you can. And if you think you can't, you can't. You know, really, and I tell women this all the time in social media, I say, if you don't think that you're going to make your money back, you know, you won't, you know, for the course, like if they're doing our course, I'll say, if you don't think you'll make the money back, you won't. If you think you'll make the money back, you will. You know, it really comes down to what you believe in your heart of heart and that intuition. But the crowdfunding was great. We had a lot of people who knew me and loved me and, you know, cared about me, a lot of former students who paid into the crowdfunding account. And then that actually gave us the attention of the Prime Minister. So we ended up having a visit from the Prime Minister, Theresa May. And then she name dropped us on national television. And in a single day, we had more registrations to our website than we'd had in the whole previous year. And so, you know, putting yourself out there and making yourself vulnerable and going for something like crowdfunding, you never know where that's going to lead to or what's going to happen. That changed everything for us. You know, having the Prime Minister talk about us on national television just changed everything. And there's many, many women whose lives have been changed because she name dropped us on national television. So I think, you know, and the investment thing, I was scared to death to raise investment. I didn't think anyone would give me money. And I paid for a coach to help me to do that. And I got my confidence up and I got a financial plan that was robust. And I got coached on how to pitch and it worked. And not only did it work, but we raised enough money to really take the business to the next level. So I think what Rebecca is saying here that I 100% agree with, and I hope you listen to this, we hired coaches. When we didn't know how to do something or when we needed help, we hired other people to help us teach ourselves how to, you know, teach us how to do it. And that's mentors and coaches are so, so, so critical in this. But don't think you have to fund this off your own back. Don't think you have to fund this out of your savings. There are so many ways to fund a business.
Wow. I'm absolutely gutted, but we're out of time. And we need to wrap up the conversation. My mind is absolutely spinning with more questions that I want to ask you. And you know, during the day today at Flexpo, we'll be able to kind of dip in and out of that, and everyone can obviously come and see you both on your stands and continue the conversation. But now I cannot thank you both enough for being so generous with the insights that you've shared, and you know how honest you've been about your experiences so far, because I know that there's a lot more that you're going to go on and do, but also just the kind of, yeah, the honesty, the insights, the wisdom, and the strength of the messaging, I think is really, really powerful. So thank you both so much for an incredible conversation.
I've loved it.
Thank you. It was wonderful.
Thank you.